me to my final topic, which is, given everything that I've said about bioluminescence, why would bacteria, which can't see anything, why would they be producing light if they've got to use 20% of their energy resources, of their ATP, in order to produce light? So what earthly good would it do to be producing light? Well, this is an interesting topic, and there's no really definitive answer. But the best that I've been able to come up with, which I think might explain this, is that the light production itself, per se, is probably not what's important here. If we look at the enzymes that are actually being used to produce the light, that is the luciferases, these enzymes have been found to have what is known as mixed function oxidase activity. What that means is that these enzymes, in addition to being able to oxidize luciferins and make light, the other thing that they're able to do is they're able to take metabolic metabolites. One of the things that occurs during biological oxidation is that hydrogen peroxide can be produced. There's also a very reactive form of oxygen. It's what's known as a radical anion, and this particular form of oxygen is called superoxide. So superoxide and hydrogen peroxide are both very toxic to cells. So when they form, which they do, it's to the cell's advantage to get rid of them very rapidly. And these luciferases actually have, it's one of the functions that they actually have is to degrade or to eliminate things like hydrogen peroxide or superoxide. So they can not only take molecular oxygen from the water, but they can also remove these other kinds of materials as well. And it turns out, so that actually protects the cell from degradation. The other effect that these things seem to have has to do with the fact that if in certain bacteria where there are mutant strains that don't produce light, it's been found that those particular strains are much more susceptible to to damage by ultraviolet radiation than the ones that do produce light. So it may be that either the luciferins or the luciferases here actually are conveying some kind of photoprotective effect, because as we know, the ultraviolet light can cause genetic mutations, damage the DNA, and in doing so, this can also result in cellular death. So that's another important consideration. And finally, the last thing I want to say is that another interesting fact is that there is something called quorum sensing in bacteria. So even though bacteria can't actually see light, and they don't really see one another, in fact they are able to sense the presence of other bacteria. And we know this, for instance, because in Vibrio fischeri, bioluminescence does not occur until the bacteria sense that there are a lot of fellow bacteria in the vicinity. So they need concentrations of about on the order of 100 billion per milliliter, which is 10 to the 11th bacteria per milliliter. With concentrations below that, there's actually no bioluminescence being produced. So quorum sensing, which also has to do with formation of bacterial colonies, somehow that may be related in some way, maybe not to the bioluminescence per se, but to the presence of the bioluminescent species. So all these things are important for bacteria, and that may be the reason why bacteria to this day still maintain the bioluminescence, even the ones that live that are free living, that is, they're not actually in an organ from another creature.